Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Tech Professionals, a Growing Opportunity for Brokers webinar. My name is Lexi Johnson. I am our professional liability underwriter here at CID Insurance, and I want to welcome you here today. I want to introduce to you Meredith Bennett, our National Tech and Cyber Practice Leader at USLI. And she is an expert and very knowledgeable in this area, so we are very lucky to have her today teaching this webinar. I also want to introduce Jacob Cole. He is our marketing coordinator who's running everything behind the scenes, making sure everything goes smoothly. So we're going to move on to the next slide. We'll speak about some logistics. So by now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the process. All participants on the webinar will be muted, but your voice is still very important to us. So please type out any questions you may have in the chat room, and we will stop and answer them throughout the webinar. And if we do not have time to address all questions, I will make sure to respond to you after the webinar. Lastly, there will be a short survey at the end, and we would really appreciate any feedback just so we can work on improving our webinars for you. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Meredith.
Lexi, thank you so much, and thank you to CID for asking me to be a part of this webinar. We're going to talk about technology professionals and why they need coverage today. What are those coverages? Why are there separate policies for technology professionals? We'll look at exclusions on some other policies. And, we really want you to gain confidence in selling these policies to the technology professionals. The opportunity to write more tech is not going away. That's something that you should be excited about. It's a growing segment. Every time I turn around, my kid is asking to download a new app. There's different types of software programs that help us do amazing things. I understand that Lexi and Jacob are going to send out this presentation to the attendees afterwards. So I'm not going to read these slides to you verbatim. You can take a look at some of the statistics yourself. I have some stats up here from 2021 and 2020. As an underwriter, it's really exciting to be in the technology space. I see different risks every day of really new, innovative, exciting things that these technology professionals are coming up with, different software programs, different ways to make our lives more innovative, more exciting, easier. There was a huge surge of that over the past 2 years. We saw a lot of website designers really shining for small businesses to help them get up to speed with contactless options. We saw a lot of education software and web meetings, such as this one, webinars and web meetings. So it's just really neat to be a part of that. And I hope that you get excited about that opportunity and selling these policies to those professionals as well. So errors and omissions, the biggest coverage that they need for a lot of them, it's not GL, it's errors and omissions. They are professionals. They are specialists. They can mess up. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding and they get brought into a claim. Sometimes they get brought into claims that, the person is so horrified with whatever happened to them that they bring in everybody. And sometimes that even includes the person that touched the computer that it happened on and really had nothing to do with the situation. We've seen all different types of scenarios. But really, they can mess up. We're human. We all mess up. And sometimes it's what our claims team lovingly calls scope creep. What does that mean? Well, you asked me to design a website for you, and I gave you a price, and I gave you a timeline. And during the course of working together, maybe you, my client, changed the project a little. And maybe me, the insured, wasn't the best at documenting those change requests. Before you know it, the project creeps out of the scope that we initially agreed on. And as a result, it costs me more money to build. It takes me more time to do those services for you. Perhaps you suffer damages because it wasn't delivered on time. You maybe aren't happy with my work because the project just creeped out of scope and you had to go hire somebody else to finish the project. You may suffer damages. So it's really common to have a scope creep type of claim where suddenly what started off as a great relationship between the insured and the client suddenly gets out of hand and it creeps past the scope of the initial services. Failure to back up is one of our most common claims. A lot of our IT professionals, part of their job is to back up the data of their client. And maybe, the client goes down and they say, oh my gosh, I need my backups restored. And then our insured goes, oh my gosh, here I thought I was backing up all 4 of your servers and I was only backing up 3. Or sometimes they have alert monitoring software that alerts them if the backups aren't happening. Well, sometimes that software fails, so they didn't realize that the backups were failing. There's all different ways that this could happen, but failure to back up is a very common claim for us. And just expertise. We've had situations where, our insured says, well, I did what you told me to, and the, claimant says, well, you should have done this. And the insured says, well, you didn't ask me to do that. And it's just kind of some type of damages because of their expertise. They're relying on them to give them advice and expertise. And it could be just a miscommunication, really. So those are some of the common E&O claims that we see. Media liability, really big piece of tech E&O. And there's 2 slides here. One's about intellectual property, one's about personal injury. I'm kind of toggling back and forth between those 2. Typically, when you think of media, you probably think of those in the creative space because there is a lot of copyright infringement, trademark infringement, trade dress. It's creations of the mind that are taken, and it is needed for those in the creative space. And there are standalone media policies for productions and TV shows and books, but you can find media coverage, and you need media coverage packaged with your E&O as a tech professional. So for those tech professionals that are in the creative space, I think it makes it a little bit easier to sell this to them. For example, website designer. What if they think they purchased the rights to use an image that they put on someone's website, but there was a mistake and actually they didn't have rights to use that image? We've had search engine optimization where they use someone's trademark when they're building the search engine optimization campaign that they didn't have permission to use that person's trademark. So a lot of different reasons in the creative space why you would need media liability. But in the more, IT, networking, managed service provider area of technology, why would they want media liability? Well, it's going to cover things that they put on their own website, but it's also going to cover copyright infringement for software programs, right? When you use a software program, you buy a license. So we had a claim, our insured hired an independent contractor because he had a very large job and needed a little bit of help. The independent contractor was supposed to help him set up a whole new office with lots of different workstations. Well, when you do that, you need to buy a separate license for each software for each desktop, right? The independent contractor purchased one software license and used that one license for all the users in this new office. Well, the software company, who was a pretty large software company located in Seattle, Washington, quickly came after our insured. You can't do that. That's copyright infringement on our software. And so you may be presenting this claim to the insured, and the insured would say, well, oh my gosh, I would never do that. Well, no, our insured didn't either, but the independent contractor that our insured hired did. And so if you're wondering, the question, the answer to your question that you may be wondering is yes, independent contractors are covered as insureds under this policy. So there was coverage for that copyright infringement on that software. I'm going to jump now to cyber liability. Everyone's talking about cyber liability. Very important for technology professionals. In fact, I think it gets really, really gray and muddy. And that's why at USLI, we always put the cyber and the technology errors and omissions together. They're always packaged together. And here's why. If I am a managed service provider and let's say, it's my job to make sure that your firewall is configured correctly, and I mess up and I cause a breach on your system, that's network security liability, which is found on a cyber policy. But a standalone cyber policy is going to exclude professional services. So if it's my professional service to configure your firewall, I'm not going to have coverage on my cyber policy if my cyber policy isn't also picking up E&O. So that's why we always package cyber and errors and omissions together. And of course, technology professionals do need general liability. It's possible they could cause some type of bodily injury or property damage. They often need it for a contract to step foot or to do a job. And for anybody, you need general liability. And a lot of places are now saying not only do you need general liability, but you also need errors and omissions, and you need cyber liability or the network security liability if you cause me to have a breach. So let's talk about some of the exclusions that you can find. This is the exclusions that are on the GL. Professional services, as I mentioned, going to be excluded on the GL. So it's going to be excluded on the cyber policy. It's going to be excluded on the general liability policy. And you can see exclusion applies even if the claims allege negligence. So there's not going to be any, professional coverage on your general liability. It's also going to exclude under property damage to electronic data. So property damage on the GL really just is covering physical damage. I walked into your premises and I knocked over a vase and I broke a vase. It's not going to cover if you lose data. A tech and cyber policy is. I lost your data. I didn't back up your data. I was backing up your data and I got hit with ransomware and now it's encrypted. So really important to note that, this is an exclusion that can be found on the GL policy. Also excluded on the GL policy under personal advertising injury. Personal advertising injury isn't covered if your business is advertising, broadcasting, publishing, telecasting, internet service provider, internet content, designing or determining content of websites for others. So your website designer does not have media coverage on their GL. Oh, and here's even more exclusions. I know that not everyone is like me, but sometimes I do get in the weeds reading these forms. It's fascinating, isn't it? I know I can't be alone there. So, arising out of electronic chat room or bulletin board, the insured hosts, owns, or over which the insured exercises control. That's social media. So that's why you want some media coverage as well, because anything you're posting on Facebook, Insta, Twitter, if there's a claim against you for some type of libel, if it's on social, it's not going to be covered. All right. Also arising out of the infringement of copyright, trademark, trade secret. So there's all of that copyright infringement. Lots of good stuff. Cyber and GL. You're also going to have electronic data, interruption of computer operations. You may have some supplements on a BOP. It may be excluded completely. There's cyber incident exclusions that are popping up lots of places. If it hasn't been on your policy already, it may be that they're not going to be picking up cyber incidents. on the GL. We saw this, years ago with EPL. They started adding the employment practices liability exclusion on the GL, and we're starting to see that more and more in the cyber world. They're adding cyber incident exclusions onto the GL. So I want to touch briefly, so that's kind of the coverages and why they need the coverages and where the exclusions are on other forms, and so why that's so important. I want to talk a little bit about reading the quote letter and understanding the options. So, as Lexi introduced me in the beginning, I'm from USLI. We're one of the many carriers that CID uses. And so I want to go through a little bit of our quote letter and hopefully help you sell when you do get a quote with USLI. So this is what our quote letter looks like. Here's something that I gave to Lexi, and you can see there's the bind box, and here's some options and direct bills available. You have payment options, and then it says, do you want option A, B, or C? So I want to talk a little bit about these optional coverages here: the property damage extension and full prior acts. So the property damage extension, as I mentioned, the E&O is going to exclude property damage because that should be on a GL form. The GL form excludes professional services. So what if you cause property damage arising out of your professional services? It's contingent property damage. You can buy a $10,000 limit for $100 or a $25,000 limit for $250. So that's what that option is. It helps to bridge that gap. And then full prior acts at USLI, if they've been there, perhaps you have a client that you've written the GL for them previously and you finally were able to sell them E&O. Hey, I really want you to purchase this E&O and media and cyber package with your GL. It's a great package. You get everything all together, but you haven't had E&O for years, but you've been in business for years. They can purchase full prior acts so that on a claims made policy, they would be covered for any wrongful acts that happened prior to that inception date. So that's a nice buy-up option that you can offer to them. Here's options A, B, and C. Errors and omissions is really what's changing here, and that's the difference between A, B, and C. 1 million limit, 2 million limit, 3 million limit. The GL will always be 1 mil, 2 mil. We package in 25,000 of business personal property and 50,000 of business interruption. Total premium here is $1,021. Well, that actually includes a lot of coverage beyond what's just listed here. That's because the media coverage is included. The cyber is included, the unauthorized access and malicious code, privacy breach. They have coverage for cyber extortion, cyber business interruption, cyber data restoration, regulatory acts, as well as payment card industry fines and penalties. That's all included on these terms for $1,021 for $1 million limit. So the media and the privacy breach and the E&O or the cyber is all included in that E&O limit, which is why it just lists out the E&O. So if you ever see this and you're not sure if it includes the cyber, just send Lexi an email back and say, hey, can you confirm this has the cyber? We try and include the forms that you can see that, and you can see here your privacy expansion endorsement, your privacy breach plus endorsement. That's your first party coverages. Here's that coverage for the independent contractors that I mentioned, and here's your media. So you can also look at the forms if you're not sure. So hopefully now you're thinking to yourself, wow, wait a minute, you're telling me you get all of that coverage for $1,021 and technology is a growing industry? That's amazing. I want to sell more. What do I look for? Well, these are some classes that you can look for to target. Software developers, app developers, anyone in computer repair, help desk, call centers, website design. I mentioned a lot throughout this presentation. It's one of our best classes. We are writing managed service providers for any of you that are having problems placing managed service providers. We are writing them. Web hosting. There's a lot of different types of classes that fall under technology errors and omissions. So hopefully you look at this list and one kind of pops out at you to say, oh yeah, I have that one insured that I have in place somewhere else. Or maybe I only write the GL or the workers' comp for that person. Let me see if I can try and sell him an E&O policy. If you want to go out and grab more of this business, some marketing strategies. If you write an IT staffing firm, or if you know an IT staffing firm, or even just Google an IT staffing firm that's local in your area, a lot of them that place the temporary workers, they require them to have their own limits of insurance and name them as an additional insured. So an IT staffing firm is a great way to get multiple technology applicants all in one fell swoop. If you can kind of partner with that staffing firm and say, hey, I have a great package that is designed for smaller individuals, smaller risks that you may be placing. I'd love to partner up and offer them insurance. Technology associations, there's a lot out there. There's probably small chapters. Join one. Join a chapter. Sometimes they're free. Sometimes they're, $25 annual membership. I try and go to some, as much as I can. And when I was first starting out as a tech underwriter, I gained a lot of knowledge just from listening to the speakers and kind of networking with a lot of those technology people. So even if you're not quite ready to go and sell and pitch to those associations, even if you just go and listen to a few of those meetings, it's a great way to kind of immerse yourself in the industry. And then referrals and risk management. So maybe you have, I don't know, an accountant that you write a lot of business for. Next time you talk to that accountant that's your insured, say, hey, Sarah, who works on your network? Because I know you don't have your own IT person. Don't you outsource that? What does their insurance look like? Are they fully covered if they would cause you to have a breach? So it's a great way to get referrals from your existing clients for the tech clients. Those are just some fun tips that I've seen work multiple times. So now that you're ready to go out and market, you understand the coverages that they need, you understand what our quote letter looks like so you can explain it to your applicant, you want to get a quote. And at USLI, we try and make it as quick and easy as possible. We need very limited information, the name of the risk, obviously, the state and the zip code, because that will determine rating. So California is rated lower than the rest of the country. So minimum premium in California is $821, and in the rest of the country, it's $995. So go California. We need the total annual revenue, and we need the total number of principals, partners, officers, employees, and independent contractors in order to rate. So the product that you can get a quote over the phone or on the web is designed for the smaller risks, and it is rated based on the number of people providing those services. We do have a product that is for a larger appetite, but that is not phone quotable. But revenue is needed, number of professionals is needed for rating, and then just a brief description of services. If it's software, what does the software do? That's what we're trying to understand as an underwriter. If you have a website, that helps underwriters greatly. We have a dedicated team of underwriters that's all we do all day is underwrite tech. And so we're able to look at a website and know exactly what they do. It probably is new to you, and that's why you're attending this webinar. You may not be as well versed in what they're doing as we are. That's okay. We'll walk you through it. We'll explain what we think the risks are, and or Lexi will help walk you through what that is, what are the coverages that they should have, etc. So we do this all day long, and we love it. So don't be afraid to ask Lexi questions, or if you're on the phone with one of our phone quoting people, don't be afraid to ask as many questions as needed. And you can get a quote online or over the phone, and that is the dedicated URL and the dedicated phone number to make this super quick and easy. So as I said, we're really looking for the small risks to phone and web quote. And the definition of small for USLI is 1 million in revenue or less and 7 professionals or less. If they have more than that, that's okay. Just go ahead and send it to Lexi. We can offer up to 15 million in revenue. And then we also have a sister company that we can send it to that does up to 100 million in revenue. So don't worry about, oh, we're only doing a million and under. No, we can handle up to 100 million in revenue or under, but it's just the million and under that's phone and web quotable. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Lexi to wrap things up for us. Lexi, did I miss anything?
No, that was great. Thank you so much, Meredith. I really enjoyed listening to you and really appreciate all your insight. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. If you have any questions, please chat them in. If you need specific applications, we have them on our website at cidinsurance.com. And we also have recorded webinars and tools to help you along the way with quoting or any questions that you may have. I will be your underwriter for any technology risks or professional needs, and my contact information is on the slide. So please reach out to me with any specific risk or questions, and I would be happy to help you. Lastly, Jacob will be sending some materials to you after the webinar, which will include the web quote and the phone quote information that Meredith spoke about. So thank you again for joining. I know you guys have a very busy schedule, and I look forward to working with you. I hope you guys all have a great day.
Thank you so much.